Here we are, we're live! Hey everybody, welcome to the Game Audio Hour. It's our weekly podcast where we discuss all things game audio, from creative ideas to the latest techniques, project experiences to audio secrets. Here's where you'll find in-depth coverage and opinions related to game audio. And again, this week I see some awesome dudes out there. Alex May, how's it going?
Good, thank you. I'm fine. It's a little humid here, and I've discovered that when it is humid, nose hairs tend to grow faster, as well as fingernails. Fingernails and nose hairs grow faster when it's humid. Why is that? Can anybody tell me?
Fast enough that you could like stick a microphone in your nose and record them?
Some good Foley in there. And with that, let's move on to Jack.
Speaking of nose hairs, hey Jack Menhorn.
Hey.
Beautiful segue.
Absolutely. I'm fine. Thanks for asking. It's humid here as well. I've trimmed my nails recently, so I'm doing well. My nose
Jack,
hair situation is... Go ahead, guys.
What happened to your dark glasses, Jack?
Oh, they're over there somewhere. I just got new ones. The other ones are a little bit too dark, because like working at night with the dark glasses is a bit inconvenient.
Right.
I thought they looked pretty cool, actually, I have to admit.
Well, they are cool, but these ones are cool too. These ones are actually just slightly tinted blue.
Nah. So what color scheme do you choose for Ableton that helps with the blue tint?
I think I'm using the Ableton 7 theme. It's kind of a light theme, like a light whitish theme.
Gotcha. Just curious. Very meaningful conversation at the beginning of this. So, you know what? I'm just going to kick right in with the most important question. We set this whole thing up. It's going to be a deep conversation. Let's go to the most important question of the whole thing. Who are you rooting for the World Cup?
Alex. Go ahead. You can go first.
Oh, you mean you're not rooting for me? I thought you were rooting for me.
Alex by himself on the World Cup stage in Brazil.
Well, I can't root for you now because if you're in Japan, I'm assuming you got kicked out in the quarterfinals. So obviously, I can't root for you now. That'd be silly.
Right. I would say England.
I thought maybe you'd go Australia.
No, England.
They didn't do so well. And England, unfortunately...
Are they still in it?
What?
Are they still in it?
Well, they have to play the third game, but they're eliminated.
Oh, really? Okay. Actually, I haven't been following the World Cup because I've been a little bit busy these days. It's kind of been hard to keep up on things.
I understand. Well,
who are you guys rooting for?
Oh, France, of course. The only team that should be there every year.
See, I know so little about sports ball kicking that I don't know if that's a joke or not.
No, France is the greatest team ever, and I'm not joking. I love them, and I root for them every year. It's either them or Scotland, but Scotland doesn't often qualify, so France. And I'm here in the U.S., not saying U.S. Not that I don't like the U.S. team. I mean, I was really excited about yesterday's game, but yeah, France. I've always rooted for France, and they're doing really well this year, so I'm pretty stoked about it. So okay, that died like a dead pigeon that was already dead. Well done, you.
Those pesky dead pigeons.
Hey, let's talk about Japan. I hear that two of the Game Audio guys did some awesome things in Japan.
Yes, I have photographic evidence. Have a look at this. Here we go. There we are. Can you see that?
There it is.
So that's me, and I don't know who the guy in the middle is. Clearly somebody who's very enthusiastic about game audio.
Photo bombers.
He was just eavesdropping on our conversation the whole day, and there's the mighty, the one and the only Vincent Diamante there on the other side, and we are there walking down Japan's longest covered shopping mall. So there's a little roof there that you can see on top of us, and it's basically a shopping mall, not really a mall in the sense of a huge building. It's a street that goes on for ages and ages and ages, just lined with shops the whole way down, and we walked all of it. So we had a great day. Basically, we met, we had lunch, we walked. We must have been walking for about, I don't know, 6 hours, 5 or 6 hours, I guess, and we talked all things game audio, and he actually he convinced me to get a set of new headphones.
Oh, yeah. The ATs?
Yeah, got some M50s with Vincent's fine recommendation. He christened them for me by
Awesome.
saying they're good, get them. And what else did we do? We went to secondhand synth shopping, but we didn't actually find anything. We found he was going to buy a secondhand Iwi, but he decided not to.
Oh.
We saw one of those nice, funky blue Marg EQs. You know, the little blue.
Yeah.
Yeah. Actually, not as expensive as I thought. It actually came with a free rack.
Oh, really?
So you could just get the rack and just get this sort of bonus Marg EQ along with it too.
Oh wow.
And what else did we do? He bought a whole bunch of secondhand games and also some retro game soundtracks. Some of the shops down there have a whole section of retro game soundtracks.
That's cool.
We looked for some Menhorn and some Johnson, but we didn't find any, unfortunately.
Yeah, some Johnson. I once did a signing once, and I was beside Christopher Tin, and Gerard Marino was there, and it was just these huge heavy hitters, and it was me being, this who the hell are you kind of guy. And this girl walks up with all these games in her hand, and she said she wanted to get my autograph, but I was sitting beside people, so I just presumed that she meant Christopher Tin. I was, oh, you mean Chris? She said, no, you. I'll never forget that. I was like, how the hell do you know who I am? That makes no sense for you to be but anyway, so she started pulling out like DS games and that I worked on, and I was like, what? This is both cool and really scary. So
you have a fangirl.
Speaking of not really. I mean, is a very kind person. I really, really did appreciate the attention, I guess, but it did feel strange because, maybe that's a topic for a later day. Is do you like to be out front or do you want to work in the back? I like to be behind the scenes. Nobody knows I'm there. But there are some guys who want to be up on stage conducting and doing all that, and man, good on them because I don't think I could handle that. But anyways, that was an amazing experience, and the fact that somebody knew any of the games that I'd worked on was pretty cool. Okay, so today's topic is tips for newcomers to freelance game audio. You've just decided you want to do this. You want to figure out what you need to get started, how to find some gigs. We'll give you some suggestions. What needs to be in your contract. How to figure out what it is that the client actually wants as opposed to what they actually say, because those are often two different things. I guess that's it, right, guys? Is that what we're shooting for?
Yeah, basically, I think we last time, was it a few shows ago, we covered free plugins. So I think maybe today why don't we leave out the technical side of game audio, because we've covered that, I think, fairly extensively. So basically assuming that you love games, you love music, you're into music, you've got some of the tools, whether they be free or you've invested a little bit of money, so you've got a DAW, you've got some plugins, you've got some recording equipment, whatever. So we're basically talking about not the hard aspect of it, but the soft aspect of it, I guess.
Yeah. Hey, Jack, why don't you start?
What are we talking about again? So I guess the first part of being freelance is either probably finding gigs. That seems like a good first step.
Yeah. What suggestions do you have? I want to freely give this advice. I want to be as transparent as possible, but I also don't want you guys to, if you've got some ace in the hole that always works for you, I don't want you to,
Well, so my ace in the hole is, I imagine, a lot of people's ace in the holes, and that is referrals and recommendations. So
yeah. So
meeting cool people and letting them be aware that you make stuff, and then when them or someone they know has to do something with audio, they can go, oh, that guy or that girl. So networking is, as a freelance, networking is huge. So go to GDC. That's very important. There's also Game SoundCon. If you're lucky enough to live in Japan, there's Bit Summit. There are local game conferences, like here in the Southeast, we have Siege as well as ECGC. There are more in other places. There's IGDA, which is a variable efficiency depending on where you live. Networking is very important.
Uh-oh, airplane, sorry. Hey, you know what? The worst part about the networking for me is talking about the fact that I do make content, and you might want to hear it. So, and I imagine everybody has that same problem. Like they're real shy about, pitching themselves up and making a reasonable deal of their talent rather than just kind of being modest about it. There's some guys I'll watch walk into a room. Matt Pearsall's one of them. He can walk into a room and walk out with 8 contracts. I don't know how the hell he does it. I think it's completely unfair. He should bottle it and sell that. So, what do you guys do when you get in that uncomfortable position of you've now got somebody's attention and you have to say your pitch and get their attention?
I reckon that specialization is something that can help you in that aspect. If you have something that you really enjoy much more than other things, for example, you love making Foley sounds, or in my case, you love synthesizing sounds, or you just love writing classical style music, or you love making techno or rock or whatever, or you're extremely good at guitar or whatever. I think when you're setting yourself up so you have some kind of package to present to people, being able to slide in there with something that you already feel very confident with and you specialize in, it may be, I guess when you're just starting out, it might be a bit, especially if you're trying to make a living off it, which is very ambitious. I think it may be a little bit intimidating because you think, well, maybe I should be all things to everybody, and maybe I should just be able to be the ultimate jack of all trades, and even the Jack Menhorn of all trades, if you like.
You caught me. I was going to do
that. It may seem tempting to do that, but I think though, in the case of Winning Blimp, when we've gone to conventions and stuff and we meet audio people, love to meet audio people and love to hear what everybody's doing. But I think if I've met 10 really nice guys, wow, this guy's fantastic. I've got his card, fantastic, great, follow him on Twitter, whatever, listen to his music, oh, this is excellent. But if all 10 of them are doing a broad scope of everything, got a little bit of rock, a little bit of sort of sci-fi stuff, a little bit for your action game, a little bit for your puzzle game, I think it all sort of kind of sends sort of collect into one sort of big ambiguous kind of bubble. And I think to know that wow, listen to that guy's voiceover, or listen to this guy's sound effects, or wow, this guy does classical music like I've never heard before, or this person's techno is fantastic. I think it may be intimidating to specialize to that degree, but I think I'll go out on a limb and argue that for the industry, being able to remember this nice guy that you met at some convention who did this extremely well means that down the track you may not be needing that kind of music for your own game, but maybe somebody that you know is like, oh yeah, I really need a sci-fi synth epic for my shooter game. Then, oh yeah, I met this guy at this convention, and here's his website. Go and check his stuff out. And I think if you can specialize to that degree, it can, if you're lucky, of course, and if you're good, it can sort of self-pollinate.
Yeah, I agree. And I was just having this discussion with Mike Shapiro, who unfortunately isn't here today, and he brought up a point that's so important that it's often not mentioned, but it's really important. Is that once you make the connection with somebody, stay in touch with them. Seems like an obvious thing, but we all get busy, or some self-doubt kicks in, and we think to ourselves, oh, I didn't hear from them last time, so I'm not going to send anything this time. Every time you turn over something cool, you do something new, even if it's your own personal stuff and you just put something on SoundCloud, drop a note to a bunch of people that you think that sound would relate to. If it's like if you just did some really cool orchestral piece that would work really good in an RPG, then and some guys at Blizzard, then just drop them a note and say, hey, I just did this thing, check it out if you get a chance. And in addition to networking, I think, and we've already talked about this, I guess it's the limits of game audio is that our show will cross over, multiple shows will have moments of the same subject matter. But to repeat myself, and I apologize, you really do have to write a lot of music. You have to constantly write something. You have to be able to put it somewhere where people can check it out. And the more you do that, the more you have a reason to contact all these people that you've made connections to. Because that first connection isn't going to really, very rarely is a contract going to come out of that first connection with that person. What do you guys think? Hello.
Well, can you restate the question one more time?
I said, keep writing music so you have a reason to contact people, because your first connection is more than likely not going to be the one that gets you a contract. Would you agree?
Oh, certainly.
For Christ's sake, wake up. We're doing a show.
So what now? I definitely think that's true. I mean, I think it's as a general rule, and this is something I haven't really followed as well as I should have. Is always be writing, or always be recording, or always be designing. Whatever you do, always be doing that.
Yeah.
It's hugely important to not only for the utility of being able to send content to people, go, hey, this is what I'm also up to. Please remember that I exist. But also just in general, like always, many times have I just worked on something for the hell of it, and then within a month I'm doing something that is directly relevant to that piece I made before, and I'm able to get a jump on that project by having already done the work before, or figured something out, or had a project set up that I could work from. I think just in general, that's good advice for anyone, especially beginners, is always be working on something.
Yeah. So you have a reason to contact people.
Right.
Okay, so that's so you've agreed with me. I appreciate it. Thank you. Now that you're awake, Jack, you got anything you would like to add?
So, when?
That's good. So okay, so let's move on. So so write a bunch of stuff so you have a reason to contact people. Go networking so that you can meet people. Now, cold calling, so hard, man. So totally hard to cold call. But you know, there's a resource out there that I think is pretty good, and I haven't exercised this, but I think people should. Is you can do searches on Kickstarter by video game and see what's new, and see what new projects just got posted to Kickstarter. Now, I recommend people go out there and contact those projects and say, are you looking for audio? Do you already have it handled? If you don't, here's my demo reel. I mean, if they're successful, you know that they were able to land some money, and you'll be able to get some pay. I wouldn't expect a huge paycheck out of that, but that's not always what we're here to do. We're here to do good work and improve the game industry and make awesome sounds, and if I can help the indie community, that's even better. So there's people out there who are making games. They're trying to get them funded through Kickstarter or Indiegogo, and they might need audio. So I would recommend people scour that and see if they can come up with any contracts there, at least help out.
That's an excellent idea.
Have you guys tried that?
I've contacted one or two Kickstarters before, but nothing has really come from it. Or usually it's like, oh, that's a cool looking Kickstarter, and then I scroll down and see if they have an audio designer who is someone I know already. So it's I think a lot of projects, I think it's good advice, but you got to keep in mind that a lot of projects might already have a team set up because they want to look as professional and put together as possible.
Yeah, that's true.
But that's not always the case, because as anyone in game audio knows, we're usually thought about last, if at all.
Yeah.
But yeah, so there's that. I mean, there's still like IndieDB, ModDB, TIG forums, GameDev.net. There's a bunch of forums and stuff to always be looking at. People posting like very early screenshots or mock-ups of a project they're working on. Contact those people. TIG forums is how I met Eddie Lee, who used to work at Q Games, and then I did one free project with him, which did another free project, and then a third free project that I did with him, just in each of our spare time, and then that third free project led to pretty much like 80% of the gigs that I've worked on since. And I also knew Alex May through Eddie Lee, so that's another super cool thing.
Indeed.
Yeah. Sorry, go ahead, Alex. I cut you off.
Indeed.
So, and also, let's face it, we got to do a lot of free work in the beginning. A lot of free work. I mean, I kept my program. This is my third career, and my second career has never really stopped. I still do some freelance programming for like old companies that I used to work for, friends who need some help. You got to pay the bills. You got to get get some stuff coming in. So when you're independent, keep that job. I know nobody wants to hear that. Keep that job, get your bills paid, buy your equipment with that money from that job, and do some free work, because you got to get your name out there. You've got to impress some people. You've got to try to find a sound that is unique, that you can advertise as your own, and then that will turn around. Absolutely, it'll turn around.
That said, this should transition into talking about contracts a little bit. But that said, if you're doing free work, for the most part, only do free work if it's a free project and everyone else is not benefiting from it. If you're working on an iOS game that's being published by a major publisher, there is zero reason why you should be working for free. If it's made by if you're working on a free project that's made by someone you know who's also not getting paid, or it's just something somebody's doing on the side, like Eddie Lee was doing when I started working with him, that's more legitimate, because you guys are just doing it to have fun doing it and learn and collaborate. But if someone comes to you and goes, this is great exposure, we're hoping to have X billions of dollars for sales, so we'll be sure to recommend you to other people, blah, 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 that's all bullshit.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think, yeah, I don't have too much experience freelancing with audio, but I have a fair bit, some experience freelancing with graphic design and web design. And I guess I would say that it's probably a little bit ambitious to throw everything away. Right now, from today on, I'm going to be a game audio warrior, and I'm going to quit my day job, and I've got this much money to invest, and I can do it for this long, and I'm going to get clients, and I'm going to do it. Then you suddenly discover that because you're just starting out and you don't know anybody yet, it's really hard to get work, and pretty quickly you'll find that you run out of money, and then you just can't do it anymore. I would say that, as Kyle said, don't quit your day job. Start as something on the side, but I would probably say don't ever do anything for free, unless, like Jack said, unless you love it, you love the concept of it so much that it's something that you would do. Yeah, if you weren't desperate for the money, it's something that you would do anyway because you just love the concept so much. Or, as Jack said, because everybody else is not getting anything either. I guess doing something for free just because somebody promises exposure, or you think that maybe it might be a good idea to get one or two projects under your belt. Yeah, I'm not sure that if you're doing that because you really need the money, then maybe it might have been a better idea not to quit the day job. So yeah, I'm not sure about the free thing. So actually, Dan Reynolds in the chat room is saying this as well.
Yeah, he says it very succinctly. If someone is selling your work, you should get paid, which is very true.
Yeah.
Same token, don't undervalue yourself just because you're starting out, because that can hinder you in the long run. So if you're working on a project where you're selling assets to a developer for $2 an asset or whatever, which is really, really low. But so if you do that project for them, it goes well, you got paid, kind of. On the next project, if they bring you on, they're going to expect you to work for $2 again.
Yeah.
If you don't value your own work, and this is for undercutting yourself or for free, if you don't value your work, no one else is going to value your work.
And I agree with all those things, even though they counter what I'm saying about working for free. And so I'm glad you guys brought up those points, because my statement could have been taken as a blanket statement. And I'm not saying do all work for free at all. I'm saying that there will be occasions where there is no money in this. Nobody's going to get paid. They're hoping the game takes off, and that therefore the team will be respected as creating this great game. But right up front, no money. And so do you want to just say, no, I'm not available because I demand I be paid, and miss out on an opportunity to create a game? Or do you want to say, hey, yeah, I'll do this project for free, but don't count on this being the next project that I do for free, especially if this is a successful game. I have a price. And I think it's important to be open to doing free projects. Like Dan said, if they're getting paid, you should get paid. But let's talk reality. That might not happen sometimes. They may be doing a project that does well, that you don't have a contract. You say you'll do the work for free, and they do end up making some money on the game, and they don't pass it down to you. That's a jerk, and don't work for that guy again. But there are a lot of projects out there where there's no idea if it's going to make any money, no inkling whatsoever, but they still need some music. And so if you find one of those and you think it's a good opportunity for exposure, then consider it. That's all I'm saying.
Well, so like I think in the podcast Indies, Cats, and Beards, Cats, and Indie Game Audio was also talked about kind of payment situation, and so a good thing to keep in mind is payment doesn't necessarily have to be money.
Yeah.
But it still can be some sort of compensation. So it could be, I'll work on your game. You have no money. I'll work on your game. You'll make me a WordPress website, portfolio site, blah blah blah.
Yeah.
I make sound for your game. You program this small game idea that I have, or something like that. But compensation doesn't necessarily have to be money.
That's an excellent idea, actually, trading the service for something that your partner can actually provide for you that will help you advance.
Yeah, and it even goes along in your career, because I just set that up for our live room. We're having a sound wall put in. I'm helping a guy fix a board, and he's putting in a wall. Yeah.
Right. Dan Reynolds has just posted a monster thing in the chat room here. I'm just going to read this because it's too long to let it slip by.
Jesus.
Dan's 5 methods for valuing a gig. Number 1, money. Is there money? Number 2, credit. Being credited is assumed, but does this credit raise your profile? Number 3, network. Are you going to get to work with people you want to work with? Number 4, education. Is this a project where you'll learn something new or get to cut your teeth on something you want to do more of? And number 5, love of the arts. Is this game concept just too cool not to be involved? So money, credit, network, education, and love of the arts.
Fantastic.
Dan Reynolds, the master.
Yeah, I would agree with all of those. I would say that whenever I'm thinking about, when I'm thinking, yeah, exactly. It's not 1 through 3 is definite. Like I need the money, I desire the credit, and network. I want to work with someone that I want to work with.
Yeah.
Now 4, education, and 5, love of the art. It can be one or both of those. It could be, something I might not necessarily learn something new on, but I don't know. But if it's something super cool, I want to work on it. Mm-hmm. Otherwise, if I know I'm going to learn something from it, super cool.
So let's talk about the giant elephant in the room, which Chase brought up, is undercutting your price. So maybe this doesn't have anything to do with people getting started. Well, it's a reality of the situation. Is that there are people who will bid on the same gig as you, but they will undercut their price pretty low. I don't know if there's any way to know that that's going on. I know it happens. I presume that I've lost a few contracts to that happening, and it really burns. But you got to stick with your value, and you know what you're worth. There are people out there who know your work, especially if you start to build a name for yourself. And you don't want to gouge them either. There are some people who will charge thousands of dollars for a finished minute of music, and it's extremely high. So there are those people who will undercut, and there are those people who will just, peg it. Try to be reasonable. I mean, when I was a programmer, I went independent for the first time. It was in late 90s. It was before the .bomb, and I was doing just a bunch of XLA programming. So it's like programming behind Excel or VBA, excuse me, programming behind Excel and Word and making them do customized things. And I thought to myself, that's a really easy thing to do. Anybody could do what I'm doing. So I should charge $35 an hour. And I didn't get a single contract. And I was talking to a friend of mine who was doing similar work. And he said, you need to double your price. And I thought he was crazy. And I doubled my price, and the phone didn't stop ringing. I swear to God. And I thought to myself, why are people paying this much money for such an easy thing? And it's because that's the price in their head that it's worth. And so you have to put yourself at the price that they think that your skill is worth, not what you think it's worth, because you may be modest. And so more than likely you'll probably want to go a little higher than your brain tells you you should go. And also, we're afraid to ask for that money. Don't be afraid. you're doing a lot of work. For instance, a minute of music takes between 6 to 8 hours to do of tight concentration, all the knowledge that you're bringing to the composition or to the sound design that you're working on. But in this example, I'm talking composition. You know, there aren't a lot of people that have that knowledge. You know, there are a lot of people who can play guitar, for Christ's sake. I stopped teaching guitar because there were so many damn guitarists. But there's not a lot of people that could actually compose on the guitar. They can just play it, you know. So if you are a composer, whatever your instrument is, you've got a knowledge that is beyond just being able to play that instrument. And there aren't as many people that have that. And, you know, you got to charge a price for that, and people are willing to pay for that. But you have to have faith in what you're worth.
Well, I mean, I think a good metaphor would be like if you go to a store and you want to buy a mop, and there's 3 mops. There's a $2 mop, there's a $200 mop, and there's a $20 mop. Well, you don't want to buy the $200 mop. That seems a bit crazy. But so then there's one that's $20, and then there's one that's $2. Well, I'm guessing the $20 one is what one should normally go for. The $2 one's going to fall apart, right? It's way too cheap. It's got to be substandard equipment, and it's going to fall apart before I even get home. So I'm going to buy the $20 mop. That's the kind of reasoning that goes through our heads every day whenever we're at a store. So why would that not carry over when someone's thinking about clients? If you're charging too little, they're going to think you don't know what you're doing, or there's something wrong, or so they want a professional. They want a guy or girl who's gonna come in, kick ass, take names, and then leave and make them look super cool. Yeah. And no one's going to be doing that for $10 an hour.
And then you get the gig, you got to do it. You have to deliver. You know, a lot of those people that are undercutting prices, when you hear the soundtrack later, it's questionable. It's not as strong as it could have been.
Right. What do you think? Go ahead, Alex.
Oh, sorry. Here's a question for you guys. I've had this a few times with graphic design. Somebody says, sorry, this is all the money that I have. How about I'll give this to you and you just do what you can. You do what is within sort of the boundaries of this much budget. Nice. Is that your answer?
It's a raid. We're being bombed.
Head in the clouds.
They're racing. We have beautiful weather here in Ventura. It's like 70-something. The rest of the United States sucks. And so all of these like biplanes and old World War II planes are all flying around from Oxnard. I think they take off. So sorry about the airplanes. Even with the windows shut, you're gonna hear it.
Oxnard.
Yeah, Oxnard. Isn't that a great name? But there's so many cool people from Oxnard I keep hearing about or meeting. So okay, Alex, say that again. I'm sorry for the plane.
My question was, one thing that happens in graphic design is somebody will have a project with a budget, and they'll say, okay, look, I know this is less than probably what you're hoping for, but this is as much as I can offer you, so how about you just take this and you just do as much as you can within the boundaries of this budget, and we'll leave it at that. What do you think? I know what my answer would be from experience with that, but what would you say for game audio? If somebody says, this is all I can give you, can you just work with this and just, don't do more than what this budget allows for, but is this okay? What do you think your answer should be in that situation?
I'll tell you, Jack, I bet you're chomping at the bit on this one too, huh?
Yeah.
You go ahead.
Well, so like Dan in the chat says that's what he would want every time, and he would rather just know their budget. He's the expert and consult on how to be economical with the audio's overall design train. And I would agree. That budget would be, if I knew exactly what their budget is, like, okay, well, this is what I can do for you. I'd much rather prefer that than go, oh, what's your hourly rate? And then I tell them my hourly rate. They're like, okay, we'll do that. And then we get, 2 weeks in, and they go, oh, we're out of money. That would be an awful situation. But if I can go, okay, well, you have X amount of money. Here's what I can do in that amount. And now, if you want X, Y, and Z more work, here's some other options we have open, percentage or work share or barter system.
Also, yeah. if it's a set price they have, which I agree, I would love to know that. But can I get the job done? Sometimes that price is so low, I have to go, you can't complete what you need done for that low. Can you, find some financing elsewhere? And I've been in that situation where I've had to say no. So it's a dangerous dangerous slope. If the person has a budget and they tell you what the budget is, that's a dream come true. If the person barely has a budget and they tell you to get everything done within that budget, or let me put it this way, as much as you can within that budget, like you said, but what you can within that budget is practically nothing, then you have to question whether you want to be part of that project. That's the hardest thing, is to walk away from the project.
Absolutely. I mean, I've been fortunate in that all the projects where they've been like, here's our budget, what can you do? I've been able to say, okay, well, I can get this much done, and then we were able to make something work. It was never so low that I was like, well, that's not even going to pay for me talking to you right now. It's always been...
I want to, because of number 5 on Dan's list of Danisms in the audio world of Dan, which is awesome, is I love doing this, and I want to do this. Let me help you. I'm willing to have a reasonable rate, but the key word there is reasonable.
Okay, well, why don't we move on from budget, and let's move on to the next step, which is like, you've got the contract, you're all good. I guess we should just put in...
So we don't want to skip the contract part.
Okay, sorry, yeah. Contract.
But there's one more thing Dan brought up that I wanted to bring up. I'm looking through the chat right now. Make it clear, transparent, more. Oh yeah. Dream come true situation number 2 is that we all know what we're charging. My dad had a saying that a rising tide lifts all boats. I know it's not his. He just used it. And wouldn't it be great if we all knew what everybody else was charging so that we could charge reasonably? The game industry has that information, as Dan said, but we don't, and it hurts us, and I agree. But I fear that with that information, how many people would look at some guy who's charging $2,500 for a finished minute of music and say, I should really only charge $1,000 because I'm not at his level. So I don't think we would ever know. I think if we did know, I don't think people would be honest about their skill set. So it's a tricky thing. If we lived in a perfect world, but the point of this is that the more information you do have, the better things are going to go for you. And so there are so many people, myself included, who will tell you exactly what I build for every project that I've ever been on. I have no problem sharing that information. Contact me, I'll tell you. And there are some people who will keep that, that information pretty tight to their chest. What about you guys?
Like anyone who has asked me, and in confidence, I've usually told them what I've made.
That's good. That's good. And the more people that do that, I think it makes a better world. But we also have to be honest and not use that against us. I certainly do not charge what I presume Gerard Marino's charging. I certainly don't charge what Jack Wall's charging. These guys have got years and years and years of experience, and finding out. Trying to figure out when you can step up your budget can also be difficult, because, or your rate can also be difficult, because, like Alex alluded to earlier, and maybe it was Jack, is that game companies will get used to what you're billing, and they'll put that in their budget, and they'll just say, okay, we want you to do it again at this rate, and then you have to have that conversation. Well, third game I've done with you, let's move it up a little bit. I've been fortunate when that's happened to me, and it's been twice. Both times a producer came to me and said, we're going to charge is this rate good for you? And I was like, yeah, it's more. All right.
Okay,
now,
so you have the rate locked in, or you've negotiated a rate, or you've negotiated a budget. Now things need to get signed on papers. This is a scary topic, and which is why I think we should definitely focus some time on it.
Yeah, I agree. So what's in your contract, Jack?
Very little. I have been using the same contract for a long time that needs to be updated. But again, a contract is when you a contract. I think I might have mentioned this video before, but everyone who is working freelance should search for a video called "Fuck You, Pay Me."
Oh yeah, we did like the first episode of Game Audio Hour. I think we talked about that.
It's a super cool video. It's pretty much going to mention everything I'm about to in much better detail. But So a contract isn't just there to make sure that the company pays you. The contract is there so that everyone knows exactly what everyone else's expectations are, so that everyone will get what they want, and what they don't want won't happen, blah, blah, blah. So the contracts is where you'll make sure that like you're credited, that you're going to deliver things on time. It probably has a kind of tiny baked-in NDA in it. It lets you know that you're not lying about where you're getting your music and assets from.
Yeah.
It's got a bunch of stuff in it that's very important, and it's not all legalese. It can be spelled out pretty plainly. But if you do get a 15, 20-page contract, quit hyperventilating and just read it. It's not in a foreign alien language. It's still readable.
Yeah, and the more you read, the more you'll know what's boilerplate. I'm not saying you still shouldn't read it because they can sneak some stuff in there, but you start to relax the more contracts you see, because you're like, oh, I've seen that before. That's the typical, they want to have rights to the mechanics of the thing.
Right.
So, yeah, contracts. The biggest part of contracts for me is how many redos. I lost the word. What's the
Revisions?
word? Revisions, thank you. Because I one time got burnt pretty hard. Early on, a lot of revisions. It just kept going. And you start getting pissed off, and then you start not liking the project, and you start hating the people that are working for you. You are the expert. But when it comes to music, people don't necessarily feel that way, because everybody's a music listener. Everybody has something they like about music. And so as a composer or as a sound designer, it's easier as a sound designer, frankly, but as a composer, even though you are the expert that they're reaching out to, they feel they have a really good idea about how easy it should be for you to do what they want you to do.
Oh, definitely. But I would, at least, I know you've had more experience with composition than I have, Kyle, but I've actually had more issues with sound design revisions than I have with music revisions.
Oh, wow.
That might just be because the projects I'm picking for music, I might have a bit more trust because I'm a bit more chill with the clients I pick for that. But as far as, not just music, but sound design, everyone has ears. Everyone knows what sounds they want to hear. So I've had to deal with quite a few revisions, especially lately.
Yeah, well, sorry if I made it sound like it's easier. It's tough all the way around. All these things are.
But yeah, so in the contract, you'll want to have something about revisions, like you get this many revisions on an asset before we say, okay, that asset's done, pay me for that asset. Any other revisions are going to be a new asset.
Yeah, yeah.
Can I just ask put in a question about payment? Sorry, I have a friend who's watching at the moment who can't get into the chat room, who's just asking, what do you think about the difference between a single payment for the work versus less money plus a percentage of the income from the game after the game is released?
So I've worked on a few indie games where it was just pure percentage. Because they didn't have any money up front, or that money got spent on something else. So I was like, okay, well, we'll just do pure percentage. And I haven't seen a nickel from it. So I'm very dubious about percentages. There's still the possibility that they're a cool thing that could work for some people, and I imagine once you get higher up in more legitimate companies or bigger companies who don't want to get sued, it's gonna be a bit easier and more stable to deal with that. But as far as a starting out indie, I've gotten burnt on every one of those, and this is including projects that are currently being sold on Steam by a major publisher that I didn't get. I'm not getting a percentage of.
Also, I'm sorry, Jack. That sucks. We were saying about revisions also, just to go back for just a second. Set a limit. Did we cover that? Set a limit to revisions?
Yeah.
Okay. Making sure, because I got distracted by the chat room. And then, yeah, points. I don't really like points. I mean, sure, we had points with Guitar Hero. Woo! That was awesome for like the first two of them, and then it dies out rather quickly. So, points are always dangerous. I wouldn't do it solely. You know, that should be a negotiation. And certainly, if it's with a big developer, a big publisher, you know, it's a lot easier to say yes to points. But I wouldn't say yes to points only. I would say, you know, some pay and some points, because points really come with those big games that are coming from studios that are planning on making quite a lot of money. You know, if it's a Kickstarter indie game and they say, we've got points, and they're like, I don't know, I really want to do it, so let's figure out another way. Yeah, so contracts also is set your 30, 60, 90 fees, because I'm in that right now. Sometimes, depending upon the economy, you won't get paid, even though you're supposed to, and it makes me very sad. And so,
explain what the 30, 60, 90 fees are.
30. So you're working on a project. We're going to pay you half before you get started and half at the end, and you go, perfect. And then the end comes, and they go, okay, we have 30 days to pay you according to your contract, and you say, yep, you have up to 30 days after we declare an end to my participation to pay the other half, or however it works. But then they miss that. In the non-game world, what they do is they put a percentage owed to you as a fee for missing their payment day, and it increases. 30 is the lower percentage, 60, you know, medium, and 90 is an even higher percentage. My percentages in my contract, I'll flat out tell you right now, are too low, and I've never ever been in the situation where somebody was too many days late to pay me, and I've got 2 clients that are both over 90. So it happens, especially when the economy is tough. I don't disrespect them. I know that they're going through their own financial situation, but you know, we work together. We signed a contract. Let's take care of the business. So set yourself a percentage. That's what I do. What do you guys think?
I think that's a great idea. There's always the dreaded cash flow problems. So
Yeah.
we're having cash flow problems, which means, you know, basically we have no money to pay you right now, so bad luck. But it's great to cover yourself in those situations, because in many cases they'll be inevitable.
Yeah, and you know what? If it's a small company, I mean, you know, boy, this thing has been negative. It's really tough to be positive, because that's the number one thing I have to say about doing game audio is love what you do and get excited about it and be as positive as possible. If somebody has cash flow problems, you know, still be understanding and say, we've all been there before. Let's work this out together. That's tough to do sometimes. When you talk contracts, it just seems to always be a negative situation. But yeah, if it's a small company and they have cash flow problems, it may turn into you not getting paid at all. And this is what the contract is for, and it's ugly. But you got to get a lawyer, and he's got to say, yes, you had all your T's dotted and you're crossed, and you've got all your I's dotted and your T's crossed. Your T's dotted and your I's crossed.
I dot my T's all the time. But no, so like, I want to emphasize that this might seem like all a bunch of grim stuff, but the contract is there to help prevent all that grim stuff from happening. If you have the 30, 60, 90 clause in your contract, then it's much more likely that the developer is going to pay you on time, and then you're not going to have a reason to be mad at the developer, and then that relationship will continue to be sunny and happy. Yeah. And full of bubble dream farts. But if you don't have this in the contract, it's going to create, even if it's unspoken, going to create bad vibes going on, because you're like, well, they haven't paid me yet. When are they going to pay me? And then you're stressing about that rather than trying to make as stellar game audio as you can. So it might seem like the contract stuff is weird and grim, but the contract's there to prevent that or minimize it when possible.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's what it's there for. And once you have that out of the way, you can be like, yes, let's get this done. And now let's move on to this part. How about this? You've created a contract, you've got a work plan in place, and it all starts to creep out of scope. What do? Starts to take longer. They're not getting you what you need in time, but they still want you to deliver on the date that you promised that you would, you know, for some cutscene or something. It's not like the end product. I mean, how do you guys handle those kind of conversations?
So I recently rearranged my office so I don't have my Spider-Man figure that I can curl into the fetal position. But imagine that's what I'm doing. I've actually never really had to encounter that, so I have no valid information to
Scope
give.
creep, it's called, if you want a term for it. You've got everything aligned. We know what we're going to do, and audio suffers this, and also like technical writers. I know I have a bunch of friends that are technical writers, and it happens to them that they're supposed to get started on the project, 6 months in. It's a year-long project. They're going to start documenting stuff 6 months in, but they can't get anything from the developers or the artists, and so now it's a month before the release date, and now they have everything, and they have to hurry up and create the documents and do the manuals, and same thing happens to audio, because we have to wait on so many people, and they're busy, man, and they're trying their best, and for every piece of animation that they're trying to pump out so that you can, so they can finish a cutscene so you can write something for it. They've got people who are judging that animation, saying it's not good enough, redo it. So we're kind of at the end of that line when it comes to that. One thing that I always do in those cases is ask for something related that I can look at or hear or experience so that I can continue writing. I do understand that I might not write exactly what they want because I'm not looking at exactly what they said I should look at, but at least I've got a bed in place. I've got something I can build off of. We can have a conversation from there. I think it's important that you don't sit back on your thumbs and just say, "I'll just wait on it then, fine, no problem," because you are kind of hurting your own ability to create. And we do wait on the muse in this industry, in this discipline. So, the muse might show up and you won't have everything you need. Ask them for anything, man. Just say, "Give me anything that I can look at so that I can start to create something."
But to back up a second to when you're talking about the fast approaching deadline, especially with feature creep, it reminded me of this weekend I went to Heroes Con, which is a pretty big comic convention, and I went to a panel on colorists, who, as you can imagine, are the last person in the chain.
Yeah.
So you'd have a writer, and then you'd have a pencil, then you'd have the penciler, and then maybe the inker, then maybe the letterer, and then you'd finally have the colorist all at the end. So you got to think, if there's 5 people in this chain, and each one of those people accidentally or intentionally takes an extra day on what they do, that adds up to you. And while these 3 panelists are talking about how sometimes they only get 4 days to do a 10-day job, it made me think a lot about how similar analogs that we have in game audio is because we're also the last one in the chain. And it's not necessarily that everyone before you in the chain is malicious or intentionally out to get you. They're also trying to create the best thing they can, and sometimes it just takes them longer. It's just unfortunate that the deadline can't move for whatever reason, usually because studios don't want fans to send them death threats. But so we have to be cognizant of that when we're developing, and if at all possible in our contract, make sure that it works in our favor.
So I think, do you think we covered everything?
I would also say that if you're starting out in game audio and you don't have it already, get the game audio book by Aaron Marks.
Yeah.
Because he talks a lot about contract stuff in pretty good detail. And one super cool and super important thing to keep in mind is anything you feel is important in the contract, put in, because they can only say no so many times. People will eventually get tired of saying no, and they'll be okay, fine, and you can have the back cover be purple. I don't care. So anything you feel is important to have in the contract, don't be afraid to put it in.
Yeah, but don't abuse it either,
Well, certainly not, but everyone will figure out where that line is.
Yeah, that's a line that you decide on with the people you're working with. Alex, what do you got? Anything to add there? Is there stuff we missed?
Yeah, I was hoping that we would have time to get into the kind of the softer aspects as opposed to all of these budget and contractual aspects. The issues of how to actually negotiate with the client, talking about their needs, looking at their game or looking at their early game concepts and figuring out good directions to go in. Maybe we have 6 minutes left, so maybe we should reserve that for next time.
Oh my
So
God.
one thing I wanted to get to, sounded kind of relevant information, but I closed my email, so it disappeared. Pioneer announced that they're going to have Dolby Atmos-enabled home speakers.
Mm.
So hopefully soon, within the next 5-ish years, we'll start having games and DVDs and affordable systems that are Dolby Atmos and that we can have in homes.
Wow. There goes my budget.
And Dolby Atmos, for people that don't know, is like a surround system that instead of just like a 5.1, which is 5 speakers and a sub, or 9.1, which is 9 speakers and sub, it's like over 100 little speakers all around you that make it to where everything is much more precise in its positioning as well as clearer, because each speaker only has to put out the sounds that are coming from that position. So you're not having like you're not having music dialogue, explosions, ambience all happening through one mechanical speaker. They're happening through multiple. What is this we're looking at, Kyle?
No, I was just getting ready for when you were done. As a throwback to the MOG that we were talking about earlier, I got to work with David Reitzes on an album for a friend of mine, Jonathan Esterbrooks. It was a real awesome experience. But he records a lot of Michael Bolton stuff, and he has this MOG setup. It just says Bolton vocals. I thought that was pretty awesome. He's got, I thought since I'm nowhere near as awesome as David Reitzes, I was going to do the same thing, but my masking tape was going to have like, I don't know, the vocals of, I don't know, somebody who can't sing very well. Just say this is their settings for horribleness. But yeah, so that was just a throwback to what we were talking about earlier, Alex, about the MOG stuff. I love that stuff.
Yeah, the plugin is very desirable too, just extremely expensive.
Oof, yeah. Go hardware then.
I think that can be said about everything that Moog makes, is that it's extremely desirable but very expensive.
Oh, this is not Moog, this is MOG.
It's Moog with 2 A's rather than 2 O's.
Oh, okay. It was blurry to me, and I thought you guys were just using a different pronunciation.
Although Moog has a 500 series, which is pretty nice. I think they did their
See, that's why I got confused, obviously.
Good call, good cover.
We had a couple more questions in the chat room, but I think we got 3 minutes. Let's do it really quickly. Raphael says, do you guys usually give an estimate of the number of assets you'll produce for a whole game on the contract?
Yeah, so like an easy way to set that up is kind of what Dan is talking about, is spot and estimate the number of assets. You put that number of assets in the contract. You have a payment for that contract. Payment for that number of assets. If you go over that number of assets, then in the contract you lay out how much is going to be per asset more, and that's a very easy way to set that up.
What do you charge per asset?
Depends on the project.
Yeah.
I've worked on projects where it's been as low as 15 a long time ago, and then that can also go up to 40, 50, 60 depending on the size and scope and difficulty of the project.
Yeah, and that's.
But I really don't like to work per asset if at all possible. I prefer to work hourly, which I know some projects don't do or don't want to do or don't like to do. But per asset is kind of a pain in the ass. And,
yeah, it depends. Like if you're doing a footstep, it's cheaper than if you're doing, a brand new rocket launcher in a cutscene that lasts a specific amount of time.
Right, but also if you're doing hourly, you don't have to have as much worry about a set number of revisions. You don't have to track those revisions. You don't have to track the number of assets you're doing. It's like I'm just going to make whatever you want, and I'm just going to tell you how many hours I did it in.
Yeah, and also there's an audio tracker Excel spreadsheet I made that I use on every project. I'll share that if anybody's interested. And
I have one.
You got one too?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's very important.
Definitely. I think it'd be great if we shared both of ours. And then there was a GDC talk in 2014 where a guy showed off his spreadsheet too, which I revised mine based on. It's a great Google Doc spreadsheet is almost required, especially if you're collaborating with anyone else.
It scares me when you say he showed off his spreadsheet. That just doesn't sound exactly safe.
It was pretty sexy. It got really steamy in the room.
Do you have like a long jacket on, and he pulled it open, and there was a television there?
It was kind of a short jacket, but I think it still worked.
Because spreadsheets are wider than long.
Right.
You're welcome.
Yes, thank you for that. I think maybe next time we can do a part 2 on how to assess when you actually enter a project. So all of the money stuff is done, the contract stuff is done. How to talk with the client about what they want, how to watch the game, try the game, or look at concepts of the game, and then piece together sort of suggestions for music or sound effects or things like that. Because that's a really it's we're all sociable people to a certain degree, and talking to somebody is easy enough, but there are many sort of pitfalls, and there are many bits and pieces of advice for actually how to extract the best information that you need for your audio work from a client. So I'd really like to talk about that.
Yeah, I want to talk about that because I want to talk about colors. I found that to be very successful in those conversations, is to ask people what color do they see when they're doing this. Because that relates to music really well. They'll say, oh, it's brown, and you're like, I see brown. Like, oh, okay, I hear brown. I know what brown sounds like. And then you can start from there. Seriously, it works. You guys think I'm crazy, don't you?
Let's save it for part 2, because that's really interesting, I think.
All right, so do you guys want to do that next week?
That'd be nice.
Sounds like a plan.
Pounds like a sand. We will do it next week. Okay. Anything to promote?
Yes. Well, actually, I have a few things. We've got the Blimp TV, the latest episode, up on YouTube if you want to see that. It's about our first game, Albion. The other thing is that one thing that we're thinking to do, whether anybody is interested, Albion had a lot of sound effects that I synthesized for it, just all using synthesizers and stuff like that. About, actually not that many, actually about 15, I guess. We're actually going to offer those sound effects just for free download if anybody wants to grab them and have a listen, or even use them if you want in your own projects. So
that's awesome.
Yeah, just keep an eye. There's not that many of them, and they're pretty limited to the game. But if some of the sample manglers out there may like to have a little bit of extra fodder to sort of throw around and mangle up, or you can just use them as they are. There's a few sort of nice game over-ish sound effects and some explosions and stuff like that. So keep an eye on winningblimp.com, because we're going to announce it there probably this week if you want to have a look at that. And the last thing to say is just a little bit of a personal announcement that I've recently been given the incredible privilege of joining the Japanese game company Vitae Backroom, which has the second coolest game company logo in the world.
Let's see it.
Which looks like this. Can you get a focus there?
Yeah,
not really.
Keep going. Keep backing up just a little bit. Back up a little bit. It'll focus.
Can't really see.
It won't focus.
Anyway, you can probably. It looks.
You can Google Vitae and it'll probably pop up.
Yeah, how do you spell it? V-I-T-E?
V-I-T-E-I.
E-I, huh?
Yeah, they have the logo looks like the Death Star, but it's actually Vitae written in Japanese inside it, which is fantastic. Anyway, I've been given the honor of joining them as their audio director for some of their upcoming projects, so that's going to be really exciting and interesting. So that's all from me.
Congrats, that's awesome.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I'm really, really happy because fantastic guys, very, very creative, inspired, and extremely talented team. So it's going to be an exciting project.
Oh, fantastic. Jack, what do you got?
I don't have anything really except if anyone reads Penny Arcade, they might have seen yesterday Gabe had a post called People Send Me Stuff, where he talked about how he got this Osmo system, which is like you plug your iPad into it and like it uses the camera to like move physical objects. It's a thing for kids. I can't really say much else about that, but I was pretty excited when that post went up.
How very vague of you.
And other than that, no.
Sounds so sad.
No, I'm working on stuff. I should hopefully have something this end of this month that I'll talk about incessantly.
All right, awesome. I got nothing. So then we'll say bye to the chatties. Thanks, chatties. Awesome, man. That was a lot of information in the chat room today.
Yeah, thanks, everyone. That was super cool.
Yeah, Dan Reynolds is on fire. Raphael joined us 42 minutes late, and Chase is the rock.
Yeah, no doubt. No doubt. So, okay then. Goodbye.
Thanks. Bye.